As an author, you are the creator of your characters and must provide for them everything. This includes their oh so very important name. And that is what I want to talk about today. Character names, methods and reasoning behind their creation, and how authors of the past and present named their characters, along with examples from some of my own work. I have broken it down into several different categories. This is something that I think about a lot when I'm writing my characters, so I am ecstatic to share all of this with you today. The first method I want to go with is taking your character names from real-life figures or other works. This is a simple but effective method, and can be as blunt or as esoteric as you please. For example, one of the major characters in my book is named Paul. Not because I picked that name out of a hat, but because his journey throughout the novel mirrors that of Paul the Apostle. If you're not familiar with his story, St. Paul was not one of the original apostles. He actually started out persecuting the Christians until Jesus revealed himself to Paul, and after that he became arguably the most influential writer of the New Testament. I won't spoil the plot of my book, but I knew right from the beginning Paul was going to be his name. The first character that came to mind when thinking about pulling from real-life figures or literature was Stephen Daedalus from Ulysses and Portrait. This character most closely represents the author James Joyce, and he gets his name from Daedalus, a creator from Greek mythology. The mythological Daedalus created wings so that he and his son Icarus could fly and escape a prison. Stephen Daedalus mirrors this journey, as through his art and creative process, he can escape the metaphorical prison that is his strict Irish Catholic upbringing. Next, we have name creation through etymology. Another major character in my book is called Catria. Catria gets her name as it means pure in Irish. A show I am watching right now, where essentially every single name is etymological, is Frieren Beyond Journey's End. While it is rather simple, about every single character in that show is named after a German word that reflects their personality. You have Stark, which means strong, Eisen, which means iron, and Himmel, which means sky. Simple, but effective. Another thing about Catria's name is the symmetry. She's a very stabilizing force in the novel, and I wanted to make sure that vowel and consonant-wise, her name was symmetrical, so I did add an H at the end of it. Speaking of that, you can create names based on how they look on the page. Another major character, Mayreen, while she is named after someone from history, has a name that looks the way it is because it is asymmetrical, as she is someone that is not a stabilizing force and filled with many contradictions. Another thing I did for her was add a diacritic to her name, separating her from everyone else and making her feel almost foreign. Even though the book takes place in her homeland, English speakers don't see too many diacritics on their day-to-day living. As a note, the background footage of this video will be an Elden Ring playthrough where I made a character a lot like Mayreen. To round out the final main character in Follow the Gleam, Finn, his name actually comes from onomatopoeia. Let me explain. This is a fantasy world, and people have access to magic. It's not called magic in the book, and casting it is based on time, but we can discuss that in another video. I'm getting off topic. Finn's magic is unique amongst the main characters, for his has range. And I was thinking, the sound of the projectiles he launches, they go, Finn, and therefore, we get his name. Next, you can pull names from songs, especially if they're folk songs and in the public domain. James Joyce in Finnegan's Wake not only pulled the character of Tim Finnegan from the ballad into his novel, but got the name of his novel from the ballad as well. I mention this because in my book, there is a scene that is very heavily inspired from the Finnegan's Wake ballad from the 19th century. There's a character I named Captain Mar, partly because it's a lyric in an Irish folk song, Irish Jaunting Car. So if you want to hire me, step up to Mickey Mar and ask for Larry Doolin and his Irish Jaunting Car. And also because Mar is a boat captain, and that name sounds a lot like mare, which is the Latin word for sea. But if all of this is a bit too much, you could just make some random names up. You can open up a yearbook or even go on a random name generator or exclusively use vibes. If you're worried that your books won't sell if you use this method, don't. Because one of the best-selling authors right now, Sarah J. Maas, admits to using name generators and going off vibes for names. I know many literary fiction fans are not the biggest Maas enjoyers, and I'm never going to claim they're the best works of all time, but I personally have read most of her bibliography and am pretty excited for ACOTAR 6. Next, you could use real people. This is not like the first one where it's important historical figures like Paul the Apostle or mythological figures like Daedalus. I mean like real people in your life. For example, one of my favorite books of all time, Suttree, one of the main character's best friends is called J-Bone, whose real name is Jim Long. This is because Cormac McCarthy, the author, had a friend he called J-Bone, whose real name was Jim Long, and his old telephone number is even in the book, which I find incredibly hilarious. So my one friend who was always at writer's group with me, Jake, who was most likely watching, sorry to say, man, if I want to be popular like Cormac McCarthy, I gotta include your full name and phone number in one of my books. I don't make the rules, sorry. Now that we're joking around a bit, I want to talk about joke names for a second. I've never done this myself, but my favorite joke name has to be from Catch-22, Major Major. His rank in the US Army Air Force is Major, and his last name is Major. But his full name, which his dad gave him as a joke, first, middle, and last, was Major, Major, Major. And also as a joke, he was promoted to Major in the Armed Forces. So if you want to say his full name and rank, it would be Major, 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 Major. So I know we've gone through a few different methods so far, and there's some I'm not even going to mention in this video. But say you don't like any of them. You could always just not name your characters at all. Cormac McCarthy does this multiple times. In The Road, we have the man and the boy, and in Blood Meridian, the main character is the kid. This one anime some of my friends and I have watched, including Jake, shout out to him again, is called Goblin Slayer. And 0 of the characters are named. Since no one has a name, everyone is referred to as their role in the story. So Goblin Slayer's name is Goblin Slayer. In my novel, and the one I'm writing right now, there are several characters that do not have a name. In Follow the Gleam, there is a member of the royal family of the land that is referred to as her title throughout the whole of the story. And now, I want to ask you this week, what name that you have given to one of your characters do you like the most? Mine would have to be Belfinelucos, who is the main character of my second novel, unreleased now, but there's so much going on in this name. First, her last name, Finelucos, which is a name that comes mostly from Italian. Fine simply means end, which ironically is the start of her surname, and Lucos is a combination between the word locus, like the locus of control, and luce, which means light. So I essentially wanted her last name to be the center of attention and the end of light. Her first name, Belle, is meant to sound short and sweet. However, if you read the preview that is at the end of my first novel right now, you'll realize that she is not very sweet. It isn't revealed until later in the book, but her full first name is actually Bellona, which is a figure from mythology, a goddess of war and bloodlust. However, I cannot take full credit for discovering that on my own, as I did what all great authors do. I stole from Shakespeare. Here's the snippet of Macbeth, where I took it from. The Thane of Cawdor began a dismal conflict, till that Bellona's bridegroom, Lapton Proof, confronted him with self-comparisons, point against point, rebellious arm against arm, curbing his lavish spirit. I wanted to thank all of you for watching again. I did not expect to get 600 views on a channel that had 6 subscribers. What I'm gonna attempt to do with this channel is upload every single Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. I have so many topics to go through, and I hope you'll like and subscribe, and stay tuned for the journey.